Primordial Radio.
Primordial Radio, it is release day Friday. We have a humongous album to play for you today, and delighted to be joined by Anders of In Flames to help us play the brand new album Foregone in full. Dude, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent, my man. Thank you very much for having me.
It's great to have you here, man. We were just having a little catch up before we came on today about the way in which, you know, life was taken from us, and then last year was all at once sort of again. But it seems actually you're just quite grateful for last year and everything that you got to experience being back out on the road.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we had an intense year. I think we played between 115 and 120 shows, and we did an album as well. So it was going from nothing to a lot, but it's good. And this is what we do, you know. These 2 years were, I mean, I had the COVID, my family had the COVIDs and everything, but we were actually not, you know, I didn't lose my job and nobody in my family got hurt. So all in all good. I know a lot of people struggle, you know, so, but I'm happy to be back and I mean, releasing a new album that we've been having in our back pockets for almost a year. So.
And it's kind of unavoidable to talk about, I guess, because I was thinking I've had to have many conversations with bands about, you know, the lockdown period, but this kind of seems like it was a bit of a lockdown album ultimately, that the body of the material came in that period.
I mean, it came at the end of it all, because I mean, Björn lives in Gothenburg, I live in Stockholm, and I think I saw him once, like physically during the pandemic. You know, the other guys, they live in the States, so I didn't get to see them. I mean, we talk and all and stuff like that, but we need to be in a room together to create this music. I need the vibe, you know. I need to feel the energy. So at the end of when me and Björn were allowed to travel, we went to the States. We rented a house and started talking about the album, just to see where we were heading. We immediately, you know, like there was a lot of frustration coming from the pandemic. By the way, I'm sick and tired of talking about it too, because it's been like that's what you did for 2 years. You talked about it every day, and now a year later we're still talking about it. But it's unavoidable. But a lot of frustration and anger and stuff like that came from that period, and just being back together, you know, and all that energy came into the album, so to speak, and that's, I guess, why it sounds like it does, you know.
I feel like we sort of have this benefit of hindsight now only a year or so after it all, are we fully getting an understanding of just how much it's impacted and the long-term effects, whether it was, you know, health or financial or otherwise. We're only really just starting to get that full picture of the havoc that it caused. But how did your European tour go? Because as you say, 120 shows, and I think you went to other parts of the world as well. To see many bands, even the likes of Anthrax, who are openly saying, we just can't afford to tour in some places, which is kind of mind-blowing, but it seems like you were able to make it work ultimately.
I mean, it's crazy in a way, because we've I heard from other agents and managers and stuff. I think while we did our last European tour, I think there was like 6 or 7 major tours going on in Europe at the same time, and you know, people, I mean, you can't, as a fan, you can't afford to go to all these shows. It's just impossible. And then the prices are really high, and the timing, and you have to think about your electric, gas, and food and all that stuff. So the competition is insane, you know. It's not, I don't think it's good for the scene. And when I hear what you said, a band like, for instance, Anthrax, and they say that we can't go to Europe, I mean, it's a lot of investment for bands. They need the bus, they need the gear, and they quit all that stuff,
hotels,
and
accommodation,
venues,
food,
and venues too, you know. Like it's not available, you know. And then so I hope it could calm down eventually, but it felt like everybody want to go out at the same time after pandemic. We all were not working for a while, and we were eager not only for the, you know, getting money so we can pay for whatever. It's just like we wanted to play, and everybody want to get out there. So it's been tough, but we've been pretty lucky, you know. People came out from wherever they came from, and our European tour felt really successful, and we had a good time, you know.
Do you think like big package tours might be a way to sort of ease some of the issues? Because like in my mind, it almost solves two problems: too many bands being out at once and fans not being able to go to a whole bunch of shows. Because I think one of the first times I saw you was on the Unholy Alliance tour, and what a bill! Great value for money. And so I'm thinking, like, perhaps more things like that. Like if it was like, say, you Anthrax and a few other bands, that might be a way to, I guess, solve a couple of problems. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would love to play with Anthrax for sure. But that would be amazing to be part of a bill with them. But I hear what you're saying. I kind of agree with you. I think that will that is a way for people to be able to afford it, and also maybe find new bands that they haven't seen before, like so I definitely think that would work. We'll see whatever the future holds, but yeah, that could be one thing.
Resurrect the Unholy Alliance tour, although I'm not sure if that works without Slayer.
No, I don't think it should be called the same thing, because I have a lot of good memories and a lot of non-memories too from it, but it's that was cool, and for us, playing with these bands, it's amazing.
Absolutely. So let's get into the first tracks from the new album Foregone, which is out today via Nuclear Blast Records, so be sure to go out and grab a copy. And so we got track 1, which is the beginning of all things, which then goes in, which is an intro track, and then goes into the state of slow decay. I think it's always nice. Like, I do like intro tracks myself, but the track State of Slow Decay, like, it kind of feels like, is that a song about sort of time itself?
I think the whole album, I know the whole album is about time and what we do with time and how we deal with time and the time that we're given, and do we give up or do we actually fight to the end? We all know time is running out. It sounds very depressing. It is fairly depressing, and in the state that the world's coming out of the pandemic, and see what we do with the world. And we had these years, and then when it's done, we get a war in Europe. Like, I see you have your shirt on there, and
mm-hmm.
And it's just like, what the fuck? What is happening to us? What will like?
Feels like three major, like, because they say like there's generation, they call pandemics like a once in 100-year events. It's kind of like we're getting 3 100-year events in like a few years.
Yeah,
it's just too much.
Yeah. I agree with you, and it's like I don't get what we're doing to each other and the way we speak to each other, and like there's no like agree to disagree anymore. As soon as that you and not you and I, you seem like a nice guy, but if we would have
I do try.
If we would have, let's you and I have an argument, and we just like, okay, I don't agree with you, and that's it, and then we move on. We so fast we go into, I fucking hate you, I can't talk to you anymore, fuck you, and everything that you stand for, like, and that's it, and that's the climate we're in a way, and it's just like, I don't get it, So I think we have to pull back a little bit and think of how we treat each other. So yeah, that's pretty much the song. But I cannot just jump into State of Slow Decay. I have to talk about the intro track, because that was like when Björn showed me a part of it, some pieces of that song. We were thinking already about making the Foregone into Foregone 1 part 1, 2, 3, right? So that song was meant to, or we had an initial thought of that being like a transition between the heavy area and the slow, and actually Foregone part 2 were supposed to be Foregone part 1. Now it's get a little bit of it, but whatever. But as soon as I heard the beginning of All Things That Will End, which had no title at that point, I was like, this is an intro. This is a song on its own, and it's something that I can see I've used for years. And then it's an intro to our live shows, and really good introduction to this album. It's a uneasy calmness, something that just, and with a title too of things that will come, and because the title was necessary, because I already knew End the Transmission. Now I'm jumping songs back and forth, but I knew that.
I mean, we'll come on to all the tracks and the title track.
I can address every song individually without mentioning, because it's an album, right? We don't write singles, we write albums. And End the Transmission, I knew that was the end of the album, so I had to have something that ties it in
to begin the album. Right. We'll get to the End of Transition as we go through the album. Let's do this now. We'll do the beginning of all things into the state of slow decay. Primordial Radio, you are listening to the In Flames playback of their brand new album Foregone, which is out now via Nuclear Blast Records. That is track 2 from the album State of Slow Decay. And we're going to get into track 3 from the album now, Meet Your Maker. And I love the way in which this track opens up. And obviously with a title track, Meet Your Maker, and we're talking about time, this feels like there's an element of death around this song, ultimately.
Oh, yeah. It's like, what do you say when you're in front of your maker?
When the time is up, yeah. And I think, like, death is, I would say it's a subject matter that isn't sort of afraid to be touched upon in rock and metal, but I think more broadly in society, death is something that we don't really speak about. We sort of internalize it. But it's one of those things that perhaps that isn't sort of spoken about at the dinner table. And of course, religion has its thoughts, and then, atheists will have those thoughts and, that sort of thing. But for me, every time I think about death, and this isn't like in a macabre or morbid way, but every time I think about death, I always end up coming back to life, going, well, I just don't know what's going to happen, so I best make the use of the time that I've got.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure is a quote from Gandalf in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. No, but I mean, and also you're coming back to time, like that's what I'm talking about here. How do you if you know when time is up, what do you make of it? Like, would you go like, I don't, or will you think about the past? Will you try to reach out to people that you might have had a disagreement with? Are you happy with your choices? Are you like, what do you do really when that time comes? And it's not to me, it's not a scary, it's not something I'm afraid of, like it's just, I'm not looking forward to it, but at the same time, I'm not scared of that time, because you don't know when it's going to happen, And also I think we cannot solely talk about the lyrics, because this was like it wasn't the first song that we wrote, because we don't write like maybe songs as a whole, like from beginning to end, we'd like jump back and forth and get the vibe. But this is where I felt where we set the tone of the album. This is the approach. This is where we're heading, and starting off pretty aggressive, but also have that typical In Flames melody and that vibe and the big chorus and stuff like that, and the mix between this then aggressive and melody, which is, I think, is the In Flames DNA in a way, So,
well, it's interesting you mentioned the In Flames DNA, because the initial reaction from fans and quite a lot of media outlets when you started putting out the singles from this was that old In Flames is back, which I kind of understood, but at the same time I was like, I think they've missed quite a few albums if they think that old In Flames has only just returned. It's like, where have you been for the last 10 years? But like, what were your thoughts on that when you probably would have seen all of the the reactions come out going, oh, old In Flames is back?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't speaking of old, I'm too old to follow what's going on online. Like, I hear it, and managers and people, and when I do interview, we address this, so to speak. But to me, old and whatever it is, like, we are so happy with our history, and that's part of our of everything, and we wouldn't be here if you take one album out. But we don't look backwards, we look ahead, all the time. And if you think it's old or new or whatever and this and that, it's just it's a matter of taste and opinion, and those are not facts. It's if it gives a vibe, and then it's awesome.
So I was just gonna say, I think the thing that sort of confused me sort of slightly about the statement was like, I don't think you've ever put out an album that's ever been a departure from the DNA of In Flames.
No, I think it's the way it's been produced, the way it's because the melodies, I like, if we would like just let's pretend something. Like we would record all the 14 albums we have by now. If we would record them at the same time with the same producer, we were in the same age. But all the gear, I don't think there would be that. I mean, it will be a different. There will be differences, but not as huge as you see now when it's years in between and you get older and the circumstances are different and then different people around and all that stuff. It's just and then also the fans get older or you younger or whatever you grow. If you hear an album like Just a Race and that's your first love, nothing can compete with that anymore. But if you hear everything at the same time, it would be, I think you would judge it differently, and you will see that In Flames is In Flames. In Flames, we have that tone, we have that certain thing, and I'm happy that we're not recording in that way, because I can die probably recording 14 albums at the same time. But
you imagine.
and I like the fact that there are years in between, and things are different, because we don't want to do the same thing again and again and again. So, but I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's the
story, it's the evolution of In Flames ultimately.
Yeah. But I think it's always been the melody and aggression, and it's always been there, and it's we don't look at, I mean, trends, stuff like that happens around you, but we don't really look at that, and it's just like we're just trying to make whatever we do, and then we get lumped into certain categories, and because people like to describe music.
Yeah, it's just the way the human mind works, and
then it's fair enough, it's fine,
Yep. So let's get into this now. This is track 3 from Foregone, Meet Your Maker. Primordial Radio, that is track 4 from the new In Flames album, Foregone, Bleeding Out. I'm here with Anders from In Flames as we're going through track by track of the new album. Just tell me a little bit about that track, dude.
It's a really dynamic track, and I know it's some of the guys, I mean, they're all my favorites, but I know when we're talking about releasing singles and doing in what order, I know there's some of the guys that this is probably their favorite track. I like it too. I think it has it's heavy and melodic, and I think it as a live track, it will come down. It will be really good listening to it, and that's the way we approach most of our music. It's supposed to be played live, and we think about, that's something we didn't think about when we started writing. Because we added guitars upon guitars upon guitars, and all of a sudden you realize we only have 2 guitarists live. So that's something that we think about these days, and how we approach every track.
Are there tracks in the discography that you thought maybe this won't be the best ones live, but actually end up becoming like quite popular? So here's an example. As a fan of In Flames myself, a deep cut I would love to hear from In Flames live at some point would be the track Freefall. I've always loved that.
And you're not alone. I've heard that several times, but now, whenever we because we know, and I think there are times where that would be cool, and then we start rehearsing and we realize there's too many breaks in that song. That starts and start and stop, and then you're kind of losing the flow of the song, and it would be, I don't think that it's... Oh,
I think you can do it, man. Let's get some love for Freefall.
I think we have to rework it a little bit, but I mean, one of these days, I think we will play it maybe sooner than later, because...
Do it in the UK.
In the UK. Maybe we should practice somewhere else first, and then we play it well in the UK. So... we don't make fool out of ourselves, but yeah.
So we're going to get into Foregone Part 1, and then that will lead into Foregone Part 2. You were talking earlier about sort of how the tracks came together, and you sort of wrote them in different ways. Was this idea of Foregone, was this ever close to being like 2 albums, or was it always just going to be just going to be a song, or 2 songs rather?
Yeah. I wanted to do something that it more like a longer track, a more epic track. So epic is a weird word, but in a way, but it's like something that it's not, because we approach a lot of our songs like a normal pop structure, like verse, chorus, like, and then there's a bridge, and then blah 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 again. But I wanted to do something that was took a more like the Chosen Pessimist or like a Wallflower, something that was different. And then we had they were written in parts, like, and then we were gonna put them together later. And we had that instrumental track that was supposed to be in between, like a transition. How can I say? It felt too good to not be repeated. Like there's like parts again, so we kind of fell in our own trap there to make it a song, like more like a normal structure, because it felt like, oh, now we're almost at the end, and it feels too good not to repeat that chorus a few more times or stuff like that, you know. But it's we went in with having, because they are like they are connected lyrically, but more like on a instrumental, like more melody, because we use like references from the different choruses and interludes in the songs. They are sort of the same, but they are played in different ways, or like some played with more clean approach and something more distorted, so that they are connected. And I like I've been, when we rehearse for new tours and stuff, I always go back and listen to our albums, obviously, because I don't have every single song in my head.
Yeah, and that must get more difficult as time goes on, right? Because this is album 14.
This is 14, and my hard drive up here is getting messy, you know. It's just it's so I go back and listen to like Gyroscope from Oracle or Moonshield, see if that can get into that. And then I hear that, okay, now we talk about old school, but that vibe, that like Swedish folk music type of, and I wanted that to get into this album. So we had that melody and we had that vibe, that feeling. So to me, that was important to bring that into these songs, and it's kind of underneath, even though Foregone 1 is aggressive and it start up really, really harsh, it's still have that vibe. If you take everything away, strip it down, it has that approach and that sense of old Swedish folk music. So yeah, I am all over the place with my explanations, but to me it's extremely clear.
Well, I like that. It's good, because there's a lot of, it feels like there's a few different sort of ideas and concepts here, and we'll touch on that after we play these tracks now. So this is track 5, and we'll get into track 6 as well, with Foregone Part 1 and Part 2. Primordial Radio, you are listening to the In Flames playback of their brand new album Foregone, which is out now. I'm here with Anders from the band. That was Foregone Part 2. And we were just talking about sort of the concepts, everything. We were talking a lot about time. And I saw an interview, I think you did with Metal Hammer, where you were talking about like the human nature. And we talked earlier about, you know, treating people, like how we need to treat each other better. And when I think of the word foregone, the second word that always comes to me is conclusion. It's, you know, this is a foregone conclusion. And so this kind of feels like an open-ended story or observation about humanity in a sense, where you're kind of looking at the way in which we are, but is that the way in which we will always be? Like, do you think it's a foregone conclusion that we are going to continue to treat each other badly or keep going in this bad direction? Or actually, can we make positive change? You know, whether it's societally or even just as individuals, like, you know, is it a foregone conclusion that humanity is fucked, basically?
I mean, there's always hope. Talked about. I mean, you should always. But if it goes in this direction, yeah, we are fucked. And in a way, I don't know how we can stop this. You know, it's getting worse every day in a way. And obviously, I'm not an expert, and you shouldn't. I mean, this is, as you say, this is an observation about what is happening around me. And a lot of our past albums, I'm looking inward, and this is more like outward looking and seeing what's going around, in the world outside of these four walls. But Foregone, I mean, it's about the inevitable end. You know, that's we're heading that way. Ourselves, you and I, we don't know. You know, we are different times and clocks encoded in our DNA, and this planet, of course, also has. And
well, it's got about 4 billion years left, and then the sun will blow up, and then
yeah, well, you see, I think we always talk about that. We have it in movies. We think like we see robots are taking over, and then yeah, there's gonna be some big rock falling on the earth and it's gonna explode. But I think we are gonna destroy it ourselves. You know, we're that fucking stupid, and our egos are too high, and it's just we are gonna blow it up ourselves way before anyone else get the chance to do it. Which is,
there's been certainly a fair amount of warnings. One of my heroes, Carl Sagan, talked about this, many years ago. But actually, it's in terms of like, can we change course? I think I'm pretty sure it's Gojira that have this lyric of, you can change the world by changing yourself. It's something like that, and I very much agree with that. Like, if all of us can make small changes as individuals, even the smallest change on a mass scale, actually that can have some of the biggest impact.
Yeah. Gojira they are not only a good band, they're very wise as well.
They're a great band.
No, but it's
oh man,
dude, I agree, but I think our egos are too big.
So then it's a question of how do we reduce egos then, Anders? Because you've been in the music industry a long time. I've been in the music industry for it's about 12, 13 years now. And I feel like the music industry at times is one of the most ego-ridden places I've ever been. So I'm sure you've seen all of the egos. And in fact, is it easy to get swept up in ego in something like, in even just something like music?
I mean, I think you go through stages in your own career and stuff where you think you're bigger and better, and then you realize you're not, and so on. But that's a learning period. And that's whatever work you have, I guess, like, that's what it is. But most of the people I meet in the industry, and especially the bands that have been around for a long time, are very, very cool and calm and understanding, and it's always a good time when we hang out. It's I don't know, and who am I to tell, really.
So if you were to give advice then to Anders, just as In Flames are taking off and really getting traction, what advice would you give to your former self if you had that wonder of hindsight and time to do that?
Nah, I mean, just enjoy the time, and maybe drink a few less beers, I guess, here and there, like, so you remember everything. Nah, I mean, it's like I'm actually happy that you didn't know everything, and you were naive, because it was fun, and a lot of these stuff that we made in the past got created because we didn't have that. We were very much in the moment, and it was not really thought through, and then, like, as an album like Jester Race was recorded in 12 days and mixed and everything, and it's a lot of cool things happen in those moments. I think I had 1 day to record all the vocals, and from a technique point of view, it's not the greatest thing I've ever done, but
that's lightning in a bottle right there, getting it done in a day.
Yeah. And when we have too much time and you think about things again and again and again, you kind of lose that feeling of something that is spontaneous, and it's just a spur of the moment thing, and it's just something great comes from that. So I wouldn't give too much advice, but maybe listen to your peers, and that's what we tried to do anyway. I remember touring with the Slayer, like back in the day, and they, you saw them, even whatever was happening out off stage, however they felt, when they went on stage, they gave it all for the fans that came, and that's probably the biggest lesson I've learned. And like, people come to your show, don't bring whatever happening outside, unless it gives you positive energy, then just do it all right there and then, for them. Then, yeah.
Let's get to this now. So this is Pure Light of Mind, and this track feels like it's got a really nice sort of cathartic feel. This one.
Yeah. It's we've done a few of those slow songs or ballads or whatever, and I wanted to approach this in a little bit different way, vocal technique wise, and It's almost has a falsetto vibe to the verse, and I didn't really know how to approach it. But I in the studio, I was sitting by the piano and just working on some melodic parts, and I started to lean towards that. And then I asked Howard Benson, our producer, do you think this is the right approach? And he was like, yeah, let's try it and see what happens. And actually try to do it to the fullest. Just don't mumble underneath something. Actually go all the way. And I did that, and I think that makes it sound almost vulnerable, like it gives the transition into the more harsh pre-chorus. It's a greater vibe, and it's the more contrast, and then is have this big open chorus about something that is very good and something that is very in all the all the seriousness and the death is lurking, like you said before, like around this album, that song is something that gives the hope, like it has the feeling of something that is really, really pure and necessary in our lives, and that perfect moment where everything is just aligned, you know.
Let's do this now. Track 7 from Foregone. This is Pure Light of Mind. Primordial Radio, that is track 8 from the new In Flames album Foregone, The Great Deceiver. And to me, Anders, that track kind of felt like one of these, another sort of, you know, old In Flames track, whatever you want to call it, a little bit influenced by your sort of own back catalogue. But you mentioned earlier that you do listen to a little bit of your own back catalogue, you know, the hard drive at the brain and all that sort of thing. So do you sort of inadvertently get influenced by your own music over time?
I mean, I guess it's not like let's have a party and listen to In Flames. I listen to it because I have to learn it, you know. Like when we go into a new tour, I have to listen to the stuff, and I put the set list together. So I try to think a little bit about, okay, I want to, especially when we have a headline set, you know, when we play for 1.5 hours, I want to present the whole band, the whole In Flames. And then it has to be from the beginning to where we are these days. And it's like, because In Flames is not 5 songs. In Flames are 14 albums, and that's really important for me to show. So yeah, I listen to, and it's you know, of course I get influenced. I get influenced by a lot of things around me without even understanding it, you know, like and you don't really, the day you walk to the studio and you record something, it might be in the back of your head somehow, and then it gets into the album with it without you understanding it. Yeah. So sure.
Like the thing that I absolutely love about music, like music in general, is how it does sort of timestamp your life. Now, I mentioned Freefall earlier, but I could take another In Flames track and think about like where I was at that point in my life. So whenever I think about the song Take This Life, I go, yeah, I was about 16, 17. I was just getting into metal, and I saw you guys supporting Motorhead. So like every time I hear Take This Life, I'm transported to a different point in my life. Yeah. And so do you get that with your own discography, where it's kind of like you can get transported, going like, oh man, like whenever I think of this song, I have this great memory of playing in Sydney, Australia, or whatever it might be? Like, do you have those great memories like laced throughout your catalog?
Yeah, for sure, with my music and other bands too. And that's what I'm trying to, you know, address when I talk to you guys and your other journalists and people that are fans of the music, when they talk about like the old and the new and In Flames should do this and you should go back and do that. It's like, yeah, but it's because you are like, I can't compete with that moment that when you heard Take This Life and you were that, yeah, it's like, how can I ever compete with that? Whatever I do after, that's a special moment for you. And that album is special. That's the first. It's like, I mean, take Queenstrike, for instance. Like for me, I love Queenstrike, right? And Operation Mindcrime to me is one of the greatest concepts, heavy metal albums of all time. You know, there is nothing they can do to change that. That will always be like that. Whatever they do after and everything, it's like, that's cool, whatever, you know, like but that is my moment, that's my album, and nothing will change that. And we all have those things, and which is amazing. That it's what I love about music too. That gives us great memories and great moments, and music is so much more than just the notes, like
or the streams on Spotify. One thing I definitely think is that if we can do it somehow is to put more value, I guess, back into music, because you think of all of the joys that music can bring you. It definitely deserves a bit more.
Yeah, but that's something I like about the heavy metal community too, because when we meet fans, we see how much it means to them, and then it means a lot to us too. Like it's that the meeting, the energy, and what we have together, and that's what I love about this genre. Like why I got attracted to it when I was young. When I was like 10, I saw this so huge. There was so much energy and so much things, and you could do whatever you wanted. And it was just like, it was a super inviting genre, Like it was only later in life, being part of the music, there are rules to this. I didn't know that were rules. I can't do this. I can't do that. Oh shit. But it's I love this type of music because I feel the fans really, and that's what we see too when it comes to getting the music. They want it on cassette and CD and vinyl, and they want the shirt and they want this and this, and it's amazing how much love and memories and stories we share.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to get into track 9 now, In the Dark, and I just want to say on this one, the guitar sound on this is filthy. Like as soon as it kicked in, I was just like, oh, the metal face. I was just like, oh, so good.
Yeah, no, it's again something that's important. The songs, they are extremely important. But we talked about getting into the album. It was the production, because I feel, it's been some of some albums where it's a little bit too laid back. The songs are great and the melodies are there and the approach is right, but the actual final thing, it's a little bit too laid back. So we wanted something that was more guitar driven, drums more up front, and every aspect of the individual instrument should be more clear and on point. And you probably you nail it when you say it about the guitar tone, and that was something that we worked with a lot to get the right feel and the right vibe.
You got the nail on the head, man. Yeah, honestly, it's an absolute standout from the album for me. So let's do this now. Track 9 from Foregone. This is In the Dark. Primordial Radio. That is track 10 from the new In Flames album, A Dialogue in B flat minor. Now, Anders, that's quite an interesting title. It almost feels like maybe there could be a sort of bit of sarcasm, like with that. Like, how did that title come about for that song?
The song is written in B flat minor, so that's what it is.
Yeah, I kind of figured. It's very on the nose in that sense.
Yeah. That's C major. Now, it's so no, I mean, and then it is the title came fairly late. I don't have titles. A lot of lyrics I don't have titles until later. That's not where I start. I have to sum it up. I have to read it, and then I get the feeling, the vibe of the song. But it's an inner dialogue about being in the room. Like it's almost like you being, again, a lot about the pandemic and being in the room by yourself and deal with your demons and your mental state and all that stuff. And then, minor is not a happy, even though I love minor tones, they speak more to me than the major ones. So I think it's more beautiful and dark and sad, and which is I find joy in that. Like I see the light. I see the light in the dark. You know what I mean?
Yep, and that's such a common theme throughout metal, is in embracing darkness to ultimately find that light, and also kind of. I think that's the one thing. The great thing about metal is that it doesn't pretend that the darkness doesn't exist, and it sort of embraces it. And actually, by sort of going through darkness, you can come out the other side and feel better for it. So
it's definitely about this inner dialogue with what you, how to approach,
with yourself
and the mental state, and we all deal with that stuff, and we should know that we're not alone and stuff like that. So
absolutely. So I talked about the filthy guitar sound on track 9 Within the Dark. We're going to get to track 11 now. I just want to make sure I pronounce this right. Cynosure?
Yeah, that's kind of...
The bass line in this. This is amazing. This is so cool. How did this one? Well, this is a very unique track on the album.
Yeah, and it's very much needed, I think, for the whole album. And I can't address this enough, that we write albums and it has to be dynamic between the songs. And we wanted something that was a bass driven and drum driven, more like rhythm type of song, that was a rolling tank in a way. And then so it was based, it's based from the bass tone and the rhythmic part. It should just go and go and go until you can't get it out of your head, sort of.
Well, I feel like the bassists over the years of metal perhaps have been somewhat overlooked, but that is changing. Seeing more bassists doing playthroughs on YouTube and getting much more love. So big up the bass players of metal, man. They definitely need that little bit of extra love. So let's do this now.
No. It's I mean, yes, it's bass. You have it in the background. It's necessary, but if you take bass out of metal, it would sound really, really weak. So it's important that it's not just guitars, even though guitarists would love it to be only guitars, but it's not. It's the bass player is really important, and we have an amazing bass player in Bryce, and another one that plays with his fingers, which I think makes the whole tone a little bit better. Mm-hmm. But that's personal choice. No, so it's for me, it's great that he gets to shine on this song. But also, Tanner is coming in and play his drums, and the way in the middle or towards the end where we add almost a drum solo in there without being a drum solo, and it's just like you can see his talents really shining through, and it's such an amazing drummer all over the album. So
Let's do this now. This is such a brilliant, unique track from the new album Foregone. Track 11, this is Cynosure. Primordial Radio, track 11 from the new In Flames album, Cynosure. That is such a cool track. Love the bass on that. I'll give a shout out to Chris Broderick as well, though, because he's new in the band and it seems like he's settled in really well. And it seems like it's going great with Chris.
No, it's he's all of them are, and now of course I should mention Chris too. And he's an amazing guy first and foremost, and we've known him for a long, long time. But as an instrumentalist, he's just amazing, and the way he play on this album and his solos, Björn and him are changing back and forth, and it's really good. And it's just, I think as a live band, we have never been better, and I don't mean to put any shadow on anyone that's been in the band before, but I think right now where we are, we've never been better. And I think that comes through within the album too, because this is the first, Bryce been in the band for, almost 6 years, and Tanner 5 and Chris 4. And this is the first album that we record together, with this lineup. And we've been playing a lot of shows together and getting into this album and making this album, and I hope people can hear it.
Well, Anders, it has been such a pleasure to speak to you today, and really sort of deep dive on the theme of the album, or whether it is death or time. But ultimately, if you would for the fans that are listening and watching to this right now, what's the one thing you would like for an In Flames fan to take from this album?
It's not me to tell, really. I want people to listen with open ears and give it time. We're talking about the end of time, but give it time. Just find something that you like, and if it's for you, then awesome. And I think there's so much more than just the surface. You can deep dive and find things here, musically, lyrically, that hopefully speaks to you. And I think in 10 years' time, this album will be considered an In Flames classic. I'm quite sure. Bold statement, but I think so.
Yeah. We'll catch up in 10 years' time. It's okay. We'll catch up in 10 years. And I look forward to that, and we'll see how
I
it
don't want
goes.
to tell people what it is. That's why, I don't really love these talks when you go into every song, because our music is there. We've done our part. It's like, it's been mine now for a year, but today I'm giving it to the world, and now it's not, I don't own this album anymore. Now it's yours, you know, and then wherever you take it, it's completely up to you. I can't say.
I believe Trent Reznor says something very similar about when Johnny Cash covered Her. He's like, it's not my song anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it's gone. So no, I completely understand
smart
that.
Man.
Absolutely, yes, very smart. Well, I very much appreciate you taking the time, Anders. Given that don't always enjoy doing these sort of talk throughs, but from my own perspective, I've absolutely loved this, and I hope you watching and listening to this have enjoyed it as well. We're going to finish on track 12 of the album, End the Transmission. You mentioned this at the start of the conversation today, and that this was a track that you just felt had to be sort of like the end, like a definitive end to the album.
Yeah, because it's the last radio transmission that we do when everything is over. When we turn off the radio, you can see us floating away in space, and that's the end of it. Or we hit by this big block coming from outer space, whatever it might be, but it's the
well, that's the weird thing about like that radio transmissions in space. I'm just going to get very geeky here, is that our transmissions are still broadcasting out in space. So if you were to travel certain far back out from planet Earth, you'll get the transmissions of like the 30s and the 40s. Tragically, I think Hitler might be some of the first transmissions that the rest of space will know from humanity, and it's just like, oh dear. But there's more to come.
Yeah, no. We should put in a cassette or something, whatever, vinyl in one of the SpaceX space that when they
no, they did that. Carl Sagan did that with Voyager.
Oh shit. Right. Oh, cool.
So Carl Sagan did that with Voyager 1. He put a gold disc on Voyager, and it's outside the solar system now. And it has like the sounds of Earth on it, which features music. One of the tracks is Chuck Berry.
Oh shit! I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Oh mate, honestly, look up the Voyager Gold Disc. It's very, very cool. It's just out there floating in space.
All right.
That's very, very cool. Anders, it has been a pleasure to speak to you today. Thank you so much for taking the time. We're going to wrap up now with End the Transmission. Thank you for your time today, Anders.
Thank you very much for having me and for presenting our album.
Primordial Radio.